Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we are talking about everybody's favorite new class of ships, the hybrid ships that have seemed to taken the game by storm in the most recent patch. And we're going to discuss what the situation is right now, the current I wouldn't say it's a meta that's been created by them, but they certainly are contributing to the current very passive long-range meta at higher tier and the future of these ships in game. But before we get into that, if you are looking for a clan to join, the channel's clan, Tsoft, the ship is on fire, is recruiting at the moment. We have clans for every type of player, casual clans, semi-competitive clans, and competitive clans. So if you're looking for that, link to that application is in the description down below. But back to the subject at hand. So hybrid ships were originally introduced into the game with the Tier 6 premium Japanese battleship, the Issei, a ship that in real life was converted to be a half battleship, half aircraft carrier thing. And we later would get the Tone, the Japanese cruiser. It's the same deal. Well, it was built from the ground up to be a cruiser slash aircraft tender, whatever you want to call it. And then we would get the Kearsarge, which is the Tier 9 American battleship that's essentially a Montana with a flight deck and rocket planes. But then as time went on, we got, well, what you're watching me play in the background right now. A full tech line of hybrid battleships, the American hybrid tech line. By the way, another consequence of this introduction of hybrid ships, before I even get into the first one, is that there's definitely an adjustment period going on for players figuring out how to play these things, because don't harass the guy or anything, because it's the Nebraska, it's the the tier 8, it's the first one in the split. The guy's clearly still figuring out what to do, but just look at the Nebraska player in the background footage. I don't think he fires his guns at all. I think maybe once. For most of the match, he sits behind the island and thinks he's a full-on CV. Again, it's the first one in the branch. Dude's probably never played CV before. I'm guessing, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, he sits there face planted to an eye for the entire match, which we'll get into the consequences of that later on. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So now we have a full tech line of these things out. And there's several issues that, going forward, I can think are going to rear their heads. At the title of this video is something along the lines of the hybrid problems at its breaking point. I made 3 of these videos so far, talking about when hybrid ships came out with the Issei, the problems I foresaw in the future. Then after the Issei had come out with the announcement of the American tech line of hybrid ships, I talked about the problems that had unfolded since then. And now we're going to talk about what the game is like right now with these hybrid ships, and more problems going forward that will probably rear their head. So first off, the issues right now, of course, everyone's favorite thing, matchmaking. Matchmaking isn't very well balanced when it comes to these hybrid ships, it seems. In the match you are watching in the background, it is actually perfectly balanced. There is a carrier on one side, a carrier on the other side, a Louisiana on one side, Louisiana on the other side, and then there is the I just said the ship's name, and now it has completely been erased from my memory. Nebraska. There's a Nebraska on both sides. So perfectly balanced, one ship per side of these types of ships. So there's no one team having more than the other in terms of that. But this was my 3rd game trying to get background footage. And in the other 2 games, that was not the case. I had 2 matches before this where it was a CV game. And, well, the friendly side had me with the Louisiana. Other side, nobody. And there was one game where it was me and the Louisiana, and then a Delaware. Other side didn't have a hybrid ship at all. Yeah, that's not exactly balanced right there in terms of matchmaking. Now, there's not a whole lot of information out about matchmaking and how it exactly picks what ship goes where, but it is supposed to mirror the enemy side as close as possible. The enemy sides, the 2 sides as close as possible, with the same number of battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, but evidently it doesn't take into account what exact type of battleship, cruiser, and destroyer they are, because, well, at the least, that Delaware should have been on the other side in that one match when it was myself and Louisiana and Delaware on the friendly team and no hybrids on the enemy team. That, of course, gives one team a completely unfair advantage. Doesn't necessarily guarantee a win, but in most cases it does. And then you have the game in the background right now. And it demonstrates this pretty well. Since this guy in Nebraska isn't really doing too much, we essentially don't have another hybrid battleship. We have essentially a carrier that can send out planes every 2 minutes, because that's pretty much what he does. I was looking back at him during the battle, and then when I went back to record the replay for the video, I was paying close attention to him, and I really don't think he fires his guns at all. So essentially we have a gimped aircraft carrier there, and well, the match doesn't really go that well. Like, I even sat around after I saw to watch him to see what he was going to do. There was a moment later on, I'm not going to force you to watch the whole like 15-minute 20-minute thing if I don't have to, where there's no one on the flank because the friendly team actually manages to almost claw their way to victory here at the end. But the guy in Nebraska just sits there. He never pushes in and uses the battleship part of his battleship aircraft carrier hybrid ship. So he's not fully utilizing his ship, so we're essentially gimped there. And I'm not saying, like, and again, don't harass the guy. Clearly he's new at the whole idea of a hybrid ship, but because of that, it's one big reason why we lost the match. So you can imagine, without even having a balance between the amount of hybrid ships per side, what type of imbalance that's going to create in the game. And of course, they are contributing to the fact that not a lot of people want to push up anymore. And I mean, can you really blame them with essentially, a CV and then 2 more essential CVs on the enemy team that you have to face when you don't have, the equivalent on your side? You can't really blame people for that. And these American hybrid ships, their planes are really good, and I do expect them to get nerfed. If they don't nerfed, what really, like, the Louisiana reticle is ridiculously tight. You can pretty much fit the reticle inside just about any ship that you're going to see, with the exception of DDs, and easily chunk the ship for 12 to 14k easily. And that's me playing this ship with those planes. Like, I'm not the greatest CV player in the world, and even I can easily pull that off. So it's definitely contributing to random battles being more painful at higher tier. However, I will give them this, that the American hybrids, they are decently well balanced, with the exception again of the reticle, because they really can't take much of a hit. You guys probably should have seen that part in the video already, where I do push in. I get a little bit too, I guess, I don't know, excited or optimistic that I can get that close to the cap at the beginning of the match. And yeah, I easily get almost dead in the first few minutes of the game because of the giant flight deck, and all the ships have that. It's way easy to farm those parts of the ship, so that is a pretty big balancing factor, coupled out with the fact that the guns are the American battleship guns. They have a very long flight time at range, and if you do sit in the back and, well, like the Nebraska's doing, even if you are trying to shoot, it's going to be very difficult to aim and get your shells on target. So that's kind of the balancing factor there. But the big question is, well, what's next? Are we eventually going to get a line of hybrid ships that have smaller hangars, or more well-armored hangars, to where you can't farm them as easily? Are their planes going to be even more ridiculous? Are they going to have multiple squadrons perhaps in the future? Are their guns going to be more accurate and have better ballistics? Are we going to get Soviet hybrid battleships next? It's what's next? Because, they gotta outdo this gimmick with another more gimmicky hybrid line. Shoot, I really thought we were going to get like I-400 and Surcouf before we started to get these things in the game. And another aspect of this too is that, what about competitive for the more dedicated players in the game? CVs haven't been allowed in competitive for a very long time because the utility they bring to the table is simply insane. The ability to just spot whatever it is you need to spot in competitive is a very strong ability. And CVs, I mean, that's what they do best in most cases, is spotting. And these ships do that very well too. I mean, obviously, you have a control of a squadron of planes. You can fly over whatever, spot whatever you need to spot. And again, in competitive and clan battles, COTS, that is a massive thing to have going for you. So are these ships going to be allowed in competitive then? And are we essentially going to get CVs back in competitive with these hybrid ships? Now, there's an argument that you have to take this, and that does take up your battleship slot. And like I've said before, they are very easy to farm down. They don't tank too well. But again, are we going to stop here with the hybrid battleships? Are we going to get more? And is it fair to someone that spent all the time grinding to this tier 10 to not be able to play competitive with their tier 10? There's that counter argument as well. So Wargaming is at the breaking point to where they have to make some decisions about this whole hybrid crap going forward. Are they going to continue down this path and continue to basically try to attract new players to the game at the cost of the more dedicated older player base? Or are they going to take a step back and just let everything breathe for a second and see how this really affects the game? Because think about it, Submarines got released and a few patches ago. It seems like the floodgates have just been opened with the craziness. We got subs, then we got like 3 lines of subs really freaking quick, and then we got these hybrid ships, and we're getting the Pan American Cruiser line with all these gimmicks bolted onto them. And well, what is next essentially? So the things they really need to address is the matchmaker. You really need to have a system in place where if there's a hybrid ship, it's marked in matchmaking or something. There needs to be an equal distribution of hybrid ships per side, as close as you can get to. Even if it's just like a Louisiana on one side, a Delaware on the other, that needs to be addressed for sure. Because that's an insane amount of spotting that is just being handed to the other team if Team B doesn't have it and Team A does. I think that will address most of the issues at the moment, because again, I do believe the American hybrid battleships are pretty well balanced, with the exception of the Louisiana and maybe the Delaware with their reticles. That's again really easy to easily chunk a ship for 15k. And then clan battles, I mean, or other competitive modes, they need to make a decision on whether or not they are going to allow these things back in. And if they do allow these things in the clan battles, hell, why not throw CVs back in the clan battles too at that point? Because you're, again, essentially allowing them into clan battles. But these are things that Wargaming needs to address going forward. And again, what's next? Are they going to try and just keep one-upping themselves with these things? Get crazier ships with crazier gun ballistics, or crazier planes, or get lower profiled hangars or armored hangars? Because who knows? A year from now, we could have Soviet battle carriers that I don't even want to think about or give them that idea, really. But that might be where we are a year from now. We will see. So I just wanted to share my thoughts about hybrids with you guys, and kind of look back at where we've gone and where we are now and where we're potentially going. Again, who knows? We might get the I-400 before we get Soviet battle carriers. At this point, I honestly don't know. I really thought we were going to get that before we got these things, so who the hell knows anymore? So guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. On the way to 50,000 subs, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, wonderful rest of the week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.